welcome to the Strange Chameleon Show. We have a very special guest, Pastor Dana.
Dana Coverstone.
Coverstone, thank you. And
he drove all the way from Tennessee,
Brooksville, Kentucky, to Phoenix in just 2 days to move a daughter out here for a job.
Awesome. I know that it has been a few past exhausting days.
Yeah, you could say that.
Tiresome days, so we want to really thank you for being able to come here and just share this moment here with you. It's
I'm honored to do it.
Thank you so much. It's very, very important. Of course, you've been making the headlines lately because of the dream that you had a few months ago. Now, the video was posted how long ago?
June 24th.
June 24th.
Yeah, June
and
24th.
What was the date of the first time around the first time?
First dream that I had was December 15th. And that's when I saw the March through June on the calendar. Got to see all those events happen, the pandemic, the respirators, the ventilators, the hospital situations that were pretty bad. Got to see looting, got to see buildings being burned, got to see a lot of fear. And then back in June 22nd, June 22nd, I had the second dream. And it was like a continuation of the first, which I saw June, and then flipped to July, August, September, finger underlined September and tapped it 3 times. And then I saw October flip and November flip. And then November, finger underlined the word November, and then a fist hit it. And that's when things went kind of crazy in the nation. The next night was the 23rd. I spoke to the guys that I prayed with every Tuesday night, shared the dream with them, and they were very well aware that the first dream I had, they saw those things happen. I told them, guys, between March and June of next year, 2020, it's going to be really, really hard. Told the guys on the 23rd of June, had a second dream, and they're like, you need to post this, pray about it. So we prayed about it, and then I had the dream that night about the coin shortage. So I just put them all together and put the video out the next morning. 15-minute, 9-second video to 1,100 friends on Facebook, and it literally had no intention other than to share with my friends on Facebook what I saw, what I sensed. I sensed great evil coming to the country. I saw great calamity. I saw great turmoil. I saw great difficulty coming not just to the church but to the country as a whole. And so, as a pastor's heart, I shared that on Facebook, and I pastor a church of 80 people in the middle of a county with less than 8,000 people. There's about 1,400 people in Brooksville, and I'm a nobody. I'm just a pastor, and for that dream to go as far as it did, it had to be the sovereign hand of God, because there is no way that it should go that far unless God has something to do with it, was behind it. And I'm a pastor. A lot of folks want to call me a prophet, and I'm not comfortable with that declaration.
yeah.
Watchman, and even then I'm still struggling there to find, because God showed me some things that are going to come, and I'm not trying to make anybody afraid or scared. I'm just trying to warn the world of what I've seen.
Yeah.
And it's been seen by millions of people now. I'm getting thousands of emails, phone calls, text messages from people who are saying this resonated with me. I just got a message today from someone who came back to the Lord because they said, I saw your dream. This is like yesterday. Saw the dream yesterday. While I'm driving, they're watching this dream. And then found my email address and just emailed to say, because of that dream, I've got my life back with the Lord now, and I want to keep going forward. So I'm grateful for things like that. But it resonated with a whole lot of people all over the world, and especially here in America.
Yes, and it's very interesting the way God chose you here in America to start this wave of this dream that you had, a very prophetic dream. And several others have come forward, and you were just sharing with me before we started recording this that other members of church have had dreams from all different races, different backgrounds, have had dreams similar to yours in a sense, but definitely of something big coming, and just things happening, supernatural things. And God chose you as the man to kind of open the gateway of these warnings and messages. And of course there's a verse in the Bible that talks about in the end of days he will pour his spirit among his children, and they will prophesy, etc. But I feel like there is meaning behind you being chosen to spread this message, especially here in America, and your message has been heard around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Got saved when I was 15. I went to a Bible college in Springfield, Missouri, Central Bible College, and the Sons of God College. I was on my way to seminary when the pastor at my home church called the place where I got saved and baptized and called to preach. And he said, "Hey, our youth pastor has had a moral failure. Would you come?" And so I went. Spent 10 years there. The next church that I went to had experienced a lot of the same type of issues in their past. The church I'm at now, I've been there almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in October. When I followed a moral failure, what I mean by that is when a pastor has gotten involved physically, mentally, sexually, or emotionally with somebody he shouldn't have gotten involved with. So every place I've been in almost 30 years of ministry, I have followed a moral failure. So when I get to the church, there's a lot of pain, a lot of agony, a lot of the people have left, the finances have gone with them, there's a mistrust in the community. And I've done my best to spend the time there. You pastor at one church for 10 years. Been almost 10 years in Brooksville. Was in Terre Haute for almost 9. So I've just done my best to be faithful to help get those churches back on their feet, keep the doors open, and to share hope and the gospel with those people, And so that's really been my background. I've been married for 26 years to my wife, Jennifer. I've got 3 adult kids. I've just done my best to be the servant that God's called me to be as a pastor. And I've gone to some hard places, and never regretted it, never. And there were times it was tough and difficult and frustrating, but the Lord's been faithful to me and my family to see those things through. And I've got a lot of pastor friends whose kids just have walked away from the Lord because of churches that they went to. And I'm so grateful that the places I have been, they've always loved my family, loved me, supported us, encouraged us. And that's kind of just where I've been,
Mm-hmm.
That's really good.
In other words, you've just been a regular guy, just trying to live for God, just trying to do the right thing, a family man, just dedicating yourself as a family man, and trying to serve the Lord. It's, very, I think that a lot of the times when people expect someone to share a message that you just shared, they kind of expect them to be I don't know, maybe famous, or you know what I mean, or maybe they expect them to have some type of ulterior motive, because there are some comments in the video that I have watched you share your message that, oh well, maybe he wants something, or maybe let's look up if he needs money or something, which, I think that you're always going to have cynical people like that, non-believers.
Right.
But you're not asking for anything. You're just sharing a message that you were chosen to have, and you felt compelled to share this with everyone.
I've been a Christian long enough that I know what the voice of God sounds like to me. And for people that are watching, they're thinking, well, how do you hear the voice of God? There's that still small voice that you recognize. And since I was 15, I had men that I would pray with who taught me how to pray, who taught me how to listen, who taught me what the Word said. I've been mentored by a lot of pastors and men who are strong Christians. I've been around people who know how to pray, I know how to listen. And I know when after having those dreams, I had that unction. And one person said, well, if you had after that first dream, you should have said something. It was what I saw happen in that first dream come to pass that struck me so hard when I had the second dream. I woke up from that second dream. My Fitbit said that I had a heart rate of like 180. I was up. I couldn't sleep. I was up on my feet. I was thinking. I was taking my phone and making audio notes, and I keep a notebook by my bed, because I've had dreams before, but nothing of this magnitude.
Yeah.
And so was writing things down, was thinking things through, and reflecting over it, playing it back in my head several times, not knowing exactly what I had seen, but knowing the first dream had come true. And I thought, okay, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? I began to really pray. And I probably spent several hours just up pacing, praying. Went to the church. I live in a parsonage right next to the church, so I went over there and prayed, walked, pace, and felt this unction, just this intense, almost like a requirement. I had to say something about this. And so then I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I do this, and what do I say, and what do I share, and pray with the guys that Tuesday night. And they were very encouraging me. The first one was, everything you told us was going to happen, we've seen that happen, so you just share that. So they prayed for wisdom in how I did it, for wisdom in what format I'd use. And I had that third dream about the coin shortage that night. Got the next morning, I sat down in my office with my phone, and just, there it was. And it wasn't, I had no script, I had no notes at that time. I just shared what I felt, because there was an absolute intense, and that word unction, probably not familiar with a lot of folks, there was an intensity. There was this, I've got to get this out, I've got to share this voice in my head that I could not get away from. And I knew if I don't do this, I'm gonna carry something from it for not doing it, for being disobedient.
Yeah.
And so I put it out there, and I realized after I did it a little bit more of, okay, well, there's some risk there, because I saw these things happening, I saw this and that going on, I saw these things with the White House and the senators and stuff. But I knew what I'd seen in the first dream, and I remember the headlines, and the guys would come to me before church and say, did you see the news today? Did you see this? I get text messages, hey, did you read the headlines, in the Atlanta newspaper, whatever? Pandemic, it's there, Pastor, you saw this, you said it was coming. And so I had that encouragement from those guys, but also just the burden of, what if I don't say something? What if, Lord, you showed me the first dream and these things happened, and there was no thing like, I have to get this out there with that one.
Yeah.
But it was the confirmation of what we'd seen when I had the second one. It was just like, okay, I woke up knowing I've got to do, I'm responsible for what I know. I'm responsible for what I saw. And if I don't say something about this is going to come back on me spiritually. It's going to come back on, whether judgment or just, it would be sin to me if I did not do this. And so I knew I had to. And so I put it out there. 15 minutes and 9 seconds later, when I hit that phone and posted it, it took probably about 15 minutes. Our internet where I live is just really slow and poor, but nonetheless, it probably took about a half hour to load. And I remember thinking, I hope some of my friends watch this.
Yeah.
And because that was, once again, the heart was, I'm a pastor and I saw something, and if these things happen, I want my family and my friends to be ready, because, man, if this stuff happens, people aren't ready for it. And if it does happen, it's going to change the whole way America looks, lives, who we are as a nation. It's going to impact every single American on the planet and the country. And not just our country, but, we are a leader for a reason, because for so long this nation was built and based on faith. John Quincy Adams, the president, made the statement that the Constitution is for those people who are moral and religious. And we no longer have those moral and religious people who no longer need a Constitution. And I've had more of that thought going through my mind as we watch the chaos in our world, But I felt the heart of God was for me to share this, and so I did. And I had to do it, no matter what the consequences were for me personally, for my family, or there's been a lot of criticism, a lot of crazy things out there said about me, by people who've never met me or talked to me. But that was my heart. I'm a pastor that saw something. I got to get it out there.
Yeah. It's interesting, because I mean obviously Jesus went through all of that, where he had to speak the truth. He was speaking, and people, threw rocks at him, did all this stuff, and he knew that he would get all this backlash. He knew all that ahead of time, knowing that I'm gonna deal with all of this, but I have to speak the truth. I have to say that. And so it's kind of like he's sharing that with you in a sense of like, I know you're going to get all this backlash and people are going to do this, but you have to speak the truth. You have to say what's going to what's happening, because it's warning my children. It's if you don't, it's like you're kind of holding back of some deep truth. But interesting. I have dreams too sometimes, but nothing like what you've dealt with. And some of them I forget when I wake up. I'm like, what? So but to actually have, I never experienced what you experienced of having a dream that eats you up. That like I have to say something, because if I don't, it's the unknown. So that's amazing.
I know that just earlier this morning, we were going through a little bit of a battle, because he was trying to speak some truth to a friend of his, and it's with people that aren't really understanding. They're very confused because of the political narratives and the news that has garnered a type of followers who are just kind of like fans, and they're fans of just hysteria. They just kind of want to believe what they want to believe and not really open their eyes to the truth. And it was affecting him, so it was affecting me. Mm-hmm. And I took a moment to myself, like, I was trying to have a moment with God, like, mm-hmm. God, how did you do it? I mean, we're here stressing about something small compared to what he went through. Can you imagine trying to talk to people, and he was the only begotten Son of God?
The reason why some things are the way they are, what the foundational truths we have as a country, and because of that, it finds its way into the church, and that's why the church, in one sense, has become so silent and quiet. We haven't had persecution. The Chinese church has been praying for decades that the American church would suffer persecution. Why? Because we have become lukewarm, we've become cold, we don't take things seriously, and for some reason we've got this idea that we're exempt from persecution because we support missions. We send the gospel from our nation all across the world. And we help, we do this, we do that, we send missionaries, we do projects, whatever. A lot of hospitals in some foreign countries were built by missionaries and Christians. I have a book called What Has Christianity Ever Done for Us? And you start thinking about the medical, the educational systems, the things that were put into place by believers and Christians who wanted education to be a strong point. Princeton, Yale, Harvard, what were all those colleges? They all started off as seminaries, Bible colleges, to train and prepare ministers, and yet have come so far from that. And so if we're going to regain any of the influence that we need to have, we've got to be out there in the watching world, among all the evil that there is, and being Christ, being light, being salt. And part of the reason I think the dreams came was to wake up the church right now to where we are in culture. Things are shifting. Things are I actually earlier, if you ask most Americans, is there something wrong in America right now? They're going to say, yes, absolutely. Because they see the chaos, they see the protests, the riots, mm-hmm. They see, and when you start hearing governors and leaders say that they support the people who are burning down buildings and they're rioting, and you think, how can you be an effective leader in a government, in an elected office, and say it's okay, or that burning a building is collateral damage, but it gets people's attention? Once we get to that place, we're not functioning as a society or a culture. We are in absolute anarchy and chaos.
Yeah.
And no society, can you name one society that's ever made it past that moment? Mm-hmm. If that is all that's unleashed. And so the church has a moment right now to, number one, get its life right with the Lord. And that means to address the sin issues and the pride issues that we have among ourselves. That means that we just get on our knees and say, okay, God, expose our hearts and the corruption that's there. Help us to be more and more Christ-like. Mm-hmm. Because the world out there still looks at the church and says, there's hypocrites. Well, that's based on our attitude, our character, our behavior, our speech in their world. They're watching us. And when Jesus said, by their fruits you'll know them, he basically told the world, you've got the right to judge my people. And if we really think about that, that should scare us. In Philippians chapter 4, Paul makes a statement. He says, the things you've seen me do, you can do. The things you've heard me say, you can say. That to me is the absolute most terrifying verse in Scripture, because Paul says, if I've said it, you can say it. If I've done it, you can do it. And how many of us, or pastors or whoever, how many of us could say that about everything we've said or done today? You know, I've had a very, very stressful day. It was a couple of days moving some things and moving a daughter here and trying to get some things transitioned. And after spending 14 hours in a U-Haul, I've had some opportunities to not be very Christ-like at all to my family and everything else. And I have to think, okay, Lord, I'm so human. I need your help. I need your strength.
Yeah.
But the world needs to know what we're doing, and we need to be living it righteously and true. We need to be the peace. When we walk into the room, there should be a whole different presence in that place because of our attitude, our character, the words we use, even the jokes we tell, the things that we're involved with. They should all reflect on who Christ is in our lives. And so we have a lot of people that sit in our churches, but they've never made Christ Lord. He's just been, well, went to church, I checked that off. I did my good deed for the day, I checked that off. And the things that are coming, I believe, in the church world, if a person's devotional life is based on 3 paragraphs and a verse you read every day in that little paper, the little document or whatever, if that's the full gamut of your spiritual life, those people are in trouble. Because the things that are coming to the church that I've seen in dreams, and that others and thousands of people have said that it resonates with them because they've been hearing, sensing, feeling, seeing the same things. And the church is not ready. The church is not ready for the things that are coming. And I believe God's trying to wake people up and say, get ready, because I don't know if it starts in September, because we're seeing the residue of all the way back to May. And it all started in Minneapolis with the George Floyd death, but those things have kept coming, and all summer long, Seattle, Portland, you saw waves of protests. You saw waves of, and I don't want to be political about it, but we've seen waves of protests in different communities, led by different groups and different people, all calling now for the defunding of police. The striking down of a lot of the constitutional things that we hold dear. Those things will impact the church. Those things will impact what we as Christians believe and do and can say. And persecution will come against what we believe for, what we stand for, and the things that we cherish and the things that we love, like family, and the definition of family. And some of the things that we're seeing out there right now are going to bring a lot of fear to people who've never really walked with the Lord. And I've had emails sent to me, even this morning. A guy said, I wasn't following the Lord at all, but I saw your dream. And this is like yesterday. So while I'm driving to Phoenix, he's actually watching the dream, and he said, I saw that dream and it broke me. And I went on my knees and I rededicated my life to Christ. Because if these things are happening like you said they're going to happen, I got to get ready for it, And so I'm thankful for that response.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that people are getting their lives right. But I'm hoping, and I'm hearing from pastors and churches saying we're starting to do more prayer time, we're starting to focus more on what we need to do, and not just the preparation stuff, but the spiritual stuff. Because the most important thing the church can do right now is get itself right with the Lord, and get back to walking with Him succinctly and specifically. Confessing our sin, dealing with the sinful issues, not just accepting everything because somebody in government said this is the way, and we walk with it. Mm-hmm. But we need to live it. If we're going to say we believe this is the Word of God, then we have to accept all of it as the Word of God, and carry it like a torch, hold it up high, and walk with it, not be ashamed or afraid. So, if anything, I think the message of the dreams was to wake the church up, to get us ready for His return, but also to warn us that there's some things coming down the pike before He comes that we're going to have to deal with. We're going to have to suffer. Peter said judgment begins in the house of God. He also said that we've been called to suffer with Christ, and that's the message nobody wants to hear.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I don't watch a lot of the comments about me online. My wife did that one night and she cried for a couple hours, and so I was like, no, don't anymore. But the other night, my son showed me one, and the guy said, the reason he's wrong, the reason Pastor Dan is wrong is because he's saying what nobody else is saying. And I thought, you're missing the point. You're missing the whole point. Jeremiah said what nobody else was saying, and those things happened. And I've been reading through the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, and Lamentations. And when I read Lamentations, I realize that Jeremiah had to write that book, that letter, basically, to say, why didn't you listen? Why didn't you, Because the prophets that were prophesying then and saying all the good things and this and that, they never said judgment's coming. And yet the principle of Scripture, the prophets, is this, that yes, judgment's going to come because of this, and there's an if-then basis. But in every one of the prophets, there was always that promise, if you return to me, if you return to me. And this is the church's if you return to me message.
Mm-hmm.
If you return to me, you're still going to have hope, you're still going to have love, you're still going to have me. There's going to be some hard times that come, but if you return to me now, we can see a whole lot more people saved and find Christ, because we're going to have turned from our ways that aren't as Christ-like as they need to be or should be. And the world will definitely take note of that. They will see the hypocrisy is being addressed and dealt with, and that we're trying to be as Christ-like as we can.
Sorry, I need a moment because it's very, very powerful, the things that you say, because they're the truth. And I do want to go back a little bit when it comes to the coin shortage that you mentioned. What do you take of the coin shortage? Is there some type of subliminal meaning behind it, or what exactly did you see in the dream, or what do you think it indicates?
Well, I would ask the question, how much faith do you have in the American dollar at the moment?
0.
How much faith do you have in currency as a whole?
It's no longer backed by gold.
Exactly. We
Many
left the
years.
gold standard 72. Richard Nixon took us off of that. You see other countries right now wanting to change and get away from the dollar as the standard. And we know there's a biblical revelatory situation coming where there's going to be a one world government, one world currency,
Right.
which makes sense in all reality. I mean, it makes sense if you to do things, but it also means that government has a whole lot more control over your money.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed at a hotel last night. We had to buy food on the way. I could choose which restaurant to go to. I had cash for a little bit, paid for some things in cash, paid for something with a debit credit card. But eventually, the dollar is going to die. I think, if you ask most Americans, how's the dollar feel to you? If you've seen, since COVID, we've had restaurants that have had major shutdowns. We've seen, and they're talking about, this is Wall Street Journal, 40% of all restaurants will be shutting down. People are very concerned yesterday was Friday, about the ending of the $600 extra per week or per month of the stimulus package. There's arguments in Congress right now about a second stimulus package. So we're printing money. How many states have enough unemployment funds to take care of everybody filing for unemployment?
Not many.
So there's this funnel of all these things that are happening, and
Yeah.
you see the stock market is shaky in some spots. You see a lot of insider trading by elected officials who made a lot of money before COVID hit, and that's common things out there. So there's going to be an eventual shutdown, and I'm actually hearing from people now around the country, from at least 4 or 5 states at least, who have said, "Hey, we're seeing shortages of 1s and 5s." A talk show host from Arizona said recently on one of his talk shows, he went to the bank to get $100 in 1s, and they said we don't have a whole lot of them, and we give you half of that. So those things are starting to happen. The food stores are stocked pretty good out here, but at Walmart in Missouri or in Kentucky where we live, 2 pounds of ground chuck will cost you $18.64. How do I know that? Because I bought some last week before we came.
Jeez.
You got 17 processing plants that are shut down. We had a toilet paper shortage. We saw all these things that are going on, and how long can the government just keep printing money and pumping it out there with nobody working?
Well, supposedly they have trillions of dollars that they can just. How does all this money just come from thin air, anyways? And how they can able to reprint? The Federal Reserve has. I can't even say the word. They have so much money just stored in there, you know. So it's like they're counterfeiting all these dollars, and so it's like, how can there just be a shortage like that when the Federal Reserve has so much money that they can just easily reprint or whatever? Coin shortage. I think it's just a big front for. I mean, I'm not big front. I know it's truth, but how can it just be shortage? We have so much stored in over there. How is it just being gone now? It's just like, I think they're kind of not telling all the truth here.
The idea is, well, the restaurants and bars have been closed, and not enough money being left for tips and things like that. But where did it suddenly go? If it wasn't being spent, then and people have it. But the whole idea that, you know, inflation is here. We're seeing those things in a lot of different areas.
I do want to add one thing to that. The other day I was reading an article, and it had to do with the coin shortage. Now, I thought they did a very good job in how they highlighted certain events from decades ago. For example, right before the Great Depression. Right now, during that time, before the Great Depression, they were asking people to turn in their gold certificates. So they did that, and then when the crash happened, they were completely vulnerable.
And had nothing that was valuable.
And now they're asking us to turn in our coins and our dimes. And, you know, if you give us $15 worth of coins or change, we'll give you $25 in return, something like that. And I find that so odd, because it's almost like they are setting us up for there to be a coin shortage. And then,
leave us vulnerable again.
We don't have any ones, there's not much money. It just seems very artificial to me.
Yeah. And we're not the only ones that are going to be a part of all that plan, because nations already talked about different ways of doing currency. That would be a one world. There's been a push for the one world government for a long time.
Yeah.
And we know the Antichrist will push for that too, because if you have the same monetary standard of currency everywhere, how much fluctuation will you get with other markets? Everything across the world, you know, from China, from Shanghai, Beijing to Paris, Rome, Chicago, you know, you're all going to have one set thing. So suddenly you've got a way to control every market, every inflation, everything is controlled because there's one common currency. And whether the dream had a lot to do with that or not, to me it was significant. Because I put the dream up on Wednesday, and by Friday, the first picture I got was from someone in Miami who I'd known from where I live in Brooksville. Sent a picture of a drive-through of McDonald's in Miami Beach, and it said, "Please have correct change. There's a coin shortage, and either use your debit or credit card or have correct change." And sent that to me Friday. Well, by Monday, I had 500 pictures from people all around America. You know, as far away as Hawaii, Alaska. Just all these pictures were coming in. It was like, okay, something's going on with this, and so there's definitely a financial thing happening. And anybody that's got major faith in the American dollar, they're either an elected official who knows something, or someone in the government who knows something. What did it do to the workforce? What did it do to folks? It basically said you can stay home and do nothing, get paid for it. Everything's shut down. And I have my own opinions about COVID and the shutdowns and things like that, but we have been well played in a lot of ways by a whole lot of organizations and people and elected officials, but that's part of it too. It all fits in with the, you know, what can we do to stop this from happening or that from happening? How can we keep people from seeing their loved ones in the hospital or nursing homes? You know, what other rights can we limit or take away? What can we do as the hands just keep getting closer and closer and closer on the throat of of Americans.
Yeah.
So many people died without their loved ones by their side. The same people that were telling us that we couldn't go to our grandmother's funeral were all in the thousands at this televised funeral. And, people don't question that. They just kind of accept what is the narrative and they take it as is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very dangerous thing to do. And right now is definitely the time to pray for discernment and to pray for guidance, and really understand where to put our trust in. But obviously the one person that never fails is the Lord.
Yeah. And we should never, the narrative should never be enough for anybody. We should always want to check things out, confirm what's being said or done. The Surgeon General back in February said, folks, we need the PPE for medical officials. It doesn't work for anybody else.
Yeah.
Well, that was the very first thing said, and this was the Surgeon General who has access to World Health Organization, CDC information, all the health, National Institutes of Health, all the health information out there. So, if you're the Surgeon General of the United States, why do we say something like that? And then how many times has the CDC changed its own guidelines on wearing a mask?
Yeah, I noticed that.
And so who do we believe? Who do we trust?
Mm-hmm.
And some states, the governors continue to push this, which is, we got to keep doing this until there is a vaccine.
And that's where Bill Gates comes in.
I've got a real concern with vaccines that are pushed that fast.
Yeah.
And human trials, where's the animal trials so far on the coronavirus vaccine? Have you seen any?
No.
They went straight to human. When's the last time that's happened?
Right.
And we've had vaccinations for the flu for how many years?
Mm-hmm.
And we still have to have, and have you heard anything about the flu in the last couple of months? Some people just have been pushing that. So there's definitely a narrative. And Christians have got to discern, and wise as servants and gentles does, the word says. We've got to be watching what's going on. And he also, Jesus also said, when you see these things happening, know the time of the end is near. And he said, because of lawlessness, the love of many will grow cold. And I keep thinking about this aspect to it. If persecution really comes in, like we're seeing it, and they're doing some crazy things in cities, from walling them up, to burning police stations. I saw the news yesterday that a courthouse, somebody had thrown an explosive device, an incendiary device into a courthouse, and there was a fire and damage with it. They are going in to police stations, call for defund of the police, and yet they really don't have. Minneapolis did that. Well, what was their plan before defund the police? They still don't know what they're doing or have any ideas. And Christians had better be discerning what's going on, because that lawlessness that we're seeing will result in persecution against the church. How many states now have had churches where their statues of Jesus have been beheaded? Spray painting on, Massachusetts has had several. Churches are being spray painted. Churches that have had to have people come and guard their buildings at night, So those things are coming, and what we're seeing is just, Minneapolis, Seattle, Portland, all these things, they are just the first event. They are just the things that are going to start and going to keep coming. And whatever's coming is going to be much worse. And the church needs to be aware of it and be ready for it. And understand that if we do what we're supposed to do, it's probably going to bring more persecution, Yes, please, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate that.
It's sort of like we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't.
It's not even a catch-22 situation. Like I said, Jesus said, through many trials and tribulations you will enter the kingdom of heaven. Nowhere did he say it would be easy. And in the last 20 years we've had a health and wealth gospel. D.R. McConnell wrote a great book called A Different Gospel. And it took much of the health and wealth, name it, claim it, blab it, grab it type idea. that God should write us a check. We're God's people. We should be blessed. We should have the best house, the best car, the best this, the best that. And that message is it is diametrically opposed to what the Bible actually says. It's diametrically opposed to the servanthood of who Jesus is. In Galatians, Paul said, when I came to preach to you folks, I was sick, and he said, some of you would have given me your own eyes if you could have it. So obviously there was something going on with Paul. But a lot of folks don't want to deal with that. We don't want to talk about suffering with Christ because, that doesn't bring viewers or donations for whatever.
Prosperity gospel.
Yeah, the prosperity gospel has ruined so many believers. And what will the prosperity gospel, the real proof of the prosperity gospel's failure will be when persecution comes.
Exactly.
Or when sickness or illness comes. And, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I've been a diabetic since I was 23. I've had it for almost 30 years now. My brother had it from the time he was 9 years old. Had a pancreas transplant, had to get another one, died when he was 48. Did his funeral a couple of years ago. I'm in the upper 5% of healthy diabetics for my age. My eyes are in decent shape. I should have kidney issues and things. I actually wear a Dexcom G6. It's a glucose monitoring system attached to my phone. But I don't blame God for that. God allowed it. He didn't give me diabetes. He allowed it. But He also gives me the grace that I need to live with it and work with it. And the last couple of days driving 14 hours a day, 2-hour time difference, all those things, they change with you. But if God never allows any hard, difficult, or potentially destructive thing to happen in our lives, where do we learn to trust? What builds our faith then? If everything is just easy,
exactly,
it's not faith. Faith requires me to say, okay, God, I'm struggling with something. I need your help.
Right. And
And God then works in our lives to show us how to do that. And so even in the things that are coming, we're going to see very, very easily, and the Gospels talk about the separation of the sheep and the goats. Persecution is going to separate, the real from the unreal. And once again, when Jesus said, because of lawlessness, the love of many will grow cold, I can see it coming with it. Where the gun's put to your head or the sword's at your neck. Are you a Christian? Are you a believer? I hadn't signed up for this. No, I went to church. That's all I needed. And yet there are people in Nigeria, they're calling it genocide right now in believers. In North Korea, so many Christians in prison. Christians who can't even meet in public, can't be a Christian in Muslim countries, can't have a Bible. It's a death sentence. When folks get saved in those countries, they have to move or leave their area. The family rejects them. And yet the hardest thing for us here sometimes in America is we might get ridiculed in the newspapers, or somebody might tell us to stop talking about Jesus or whatever. So we haven't seen anything yet, and that's my biggest concern for the church right now.
Yeah.
Is that they're not ready, and they don't want to be ready. And the false teaching, the false prophecies continue to be out there that God's just going to bless everything and it's going to be okay. And I don't know what Bible they're using.
Yeah.
But you were mentioning Strange. You were saying about like certain areas are now you get fined if you're in a church or if you sing in church or something, right? You were talking about that with me?
Well, in California.
In California, where if you sing now into a church, you're going to get fined. And that just struck me. I was like, wow, it's really coming now. It's like, this is where this is all happening. And it just, it's so frustrating. If you
saw the interview with Dr. Fauci was a congressional interview.
I saw that.
And Representative Jordan tried to get him to literally say, are protests causing this? And you never got a full answer. And so they're allowing protests that they say they can't do anything about. We've got enough riot control, state police officers, federal agents that could come in and do that. But nobody, even the governors and the mayors, want to say that these things are causing anything. And the governors and mayors have become a part of some of those things.
Yeah.
Which just shows you the absolute, I don't know how I can say this, but it shows you the absolute insanity. Nobody seems to care about who gets it unless it's they got it at church, they got it here, wherever. Restaurants are shutting down, people are losing their jobs. We're about to see a huge wave of suicides because of that, and they're preparing.
Yes, that is happening. You're the one that I heard this from, and really, when you think about it, it's not very difficult to envision, because a lot of people, like you said, they're just not ready, and they're going to want to opt for that out because they just don't know what else.
They don't have
and
faith.
They don't have faith, and maybe they have some, but they're just not ready.
Yeah.
Like you said, and by the way, he referred to me as strange because the show is called Strange Show.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I looked at him and he was like, what? So I was like, okay, no, but this is a more real interview with a lot of the times we can get very comical and we have a good sense of humor about it, but this is definitely as something very different and very, very important. But I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about one of the latest dreams that you had, which was where you're warning us about the many suicides that will happen and how you saw dark entities basically getting ready for battle against us.
It appeared to me in the dream to be like sleeper cells, like we think of terrorist sleeper cells being alerted. It was demonic terrorist cells, demonic sleeper cells that were being awakened. They were putting on armor. They were sharpening swords. They were. It was almost like I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, and Tolkien's a big fan. I'm a big fan, and like the Urkai who were putting on the armor and going out toward a march. That's what it seemed to be to me in these dreams. And significant was, I was at my mom's house in Jacksonville, Indiana, and preached that Sunday at my home church, and brought my daughter up here to see my mom before we moved out here to Phoenix, moved over to Phoenix. And there was an old slaughterhouse I used to go by on my motorcycle and bicycle out in the woods, and there had hills and motocross tracks and things. And I just kind of walked down there and was looking at it. It was all overgrown and grass everywhere and tall weeds, and had been in non-use for probably 15 or 20 years. And that night, in my dream, I started off walking down there, and I saw the calendar go. It faded from July into August, September, October, November, December. I saw all those months. I saw them highlighted, but I saw it fade from July into August. And I'm walking down by the slaughterhouse, and suddenly I see smoke begin to come out of the stacks, and I saw movement. The grass begins to move, and then I was like seeing inside the building, and I was seeing these sleeping demons who were suddenly coming alive, coming awake, and they were putting armor on. They were looking at swords. They were like pounding each other's chests like they were going out to war battle, almost like that Band of Brothers thing. And then I realized it was happening all over the nation. It wasn't just there at this slaughterhouse near my old aunt's house, because she worked there for years. And then I began to see the spirits of lust and pornography being just unleashed on Christian men, especially pastors, leaders, ministers. I saw Christian marriage under absolute attack from the same things. And I was actually contacted by somebody, a lady minister back in Kentucky, who said, you know what, women are doing these sort of things today, she wants to talk to me this next week about that. But there was an attack on marriage, the purity of marriage, as the way the Bible defines it. And then I saw a wave of suicides, including Christian leaders. I didn't see names, but I saw headlines. And the two things I see are the calendar, months, and dates, and I see headlines. And I saw, pastor commit suicide, leaders commit suicide. I saw a huge wave of suicide, and I was seeing news reports where people were saying because of evictions, because of COVID shutdowns, because of people losing their jobs, because of the stimulus packages going away, because of financial difficulty, we were seeing waves and waves of suicides like we've never seen before. And then at the very end of that dream, there's been a prominent figure in white that would say, like, brace yourself, brace yourself. But this time he said, brace yourself. Brace yourself. Brace yourself. And the emphasis was on brace. Hold on. And the other times I heard brace yourself, I imagined myself with my right foot back, leaning into something almost like a football player ready to get hit. But you lean forward, you brace yourself, so whatever's coming, it doesn't knock you down to the ground. This time, when I heard brace yourself, it was like hold on to something too. Don't just lean into it because of the things that are coming. But it was a wave of suicide. And just since I posted that on Sunday afternoon, coming back from Indiana, I know several psychology magazines have come out with something about they're anticipating a wave of suicides. I posted something from Zero Hedge on my Facebook page the other day, where they're seeing a wave of police suicides.
Yes.
You know, and so once again, I think God's trying to wake the church up and say these things will be a part of us if we're not careful. And the other thing I keep people will say, well, how much of these things can we pray against and they not happen? A lot of the in the prophetic world, the ones that have been the most upset with me about, well, you're saying these things and nobody else is saying them, and you need to say the right things, the positive things, the good things. I had a dream. I've had several dreams, and God showed me things that I've seen happen in one, and now in a third one. That third one's the coins. I saw the coin shortage. I saw the ones and fives. Those things were happening. And so when I see things about suicides, especially among Christian leaders and pastors, because if those things get a hold of people, it does nothing but corrupt hearts and minds. It's going to destroy marriages and families. And I would even say in this interview to pastors and Christians who are caught up in these things, find someone you can confess those sins to, begin to deal with it. Don't do it on your own. You need help. You need accountability. Do that, because there's going to be ministers and missionaries and pastors who are going to be found out and discovered, and it's going to ruin their lives. And if they would just go to the Lord and confess and find others they can share with and talk about. I saw a calendar. I saw September. I saw September was pulled off of the calendar on the wall. And then there's a secret place prayer room we have in our church, and we have an altar in there.
Oh, what is it?
Have some pictures. Oh, yeah. It's, there's two horned altars in the brazen altar where animals were sacrificed. There was another horned altar where they had fragrance and incense, and it was a place of worship. Yeah. And so our altar has 4 horns, and so literally you kneel, you reach up and you grab hold of the horns of the altar, which is a biblical concept. And every morning I start my day there, and it's just me saying, God, I need you to hold on to my life today or whatever, and but there's just some assurance and peace, you know.
Yeah.
It's in our secret place prayer room. I saw the calendar, and it landed right at the foot of the altar. And I heard a voice say, stand on September, begin to pray. So I stood on September, began to pray. And I was told to pray for 3 specific things. First of all was that the church would have a stronger backbone. Second of all, that corruption would be exposed in the church. And number 3, that we see a great harvest. So I'm standing on September, I began to pray.
Those are all great things to
pray about. And that's what I heard. So I began to pray, and I heard the voice again, you're not enough, get others, call. So I began to say, please come help pray. Please, everybody listen up. I'm yelling, I'm not screaming, just yelling. Folks, we need help, come on, we're supposed to pray. Here's what we prayed for. So people begin to pray, and suddenly I see that the calendar begins to expand. It's bigger. There's a lot of white space, and I'm standing on Tuesday, September 1st. And the calendar gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally the voice says, you're not enough. Pray for more. Call for more help. So all of us begin to do that. Please come. Please pray. We need to pray. Come on, folks. You know, everything we can imagine. And then I'm seeing people. The calendar has gone the contours of the United States. I'm stepping somewhere over Idaho or Washington State. And we're praying hard. I see people praying in tongues. I see people praying in English. I see people who are kneeling on their prostrate. I see people praying quietly. I see every model of prayer that you can imagine. If it's a way that people pray, it's being done. And more people are there, and the white space on the calendar is starting to fill up with people. And then I'm kind of lifted up in the air, I look down, and I see a finger, and it writes the words, A Solemn, in front of September, and Assembly afterwards. So I'm looking at the words, A Solemn September Assembly. And so then I'm back on the ground, and people are praying, and suddenly there's an incredible amount of warfare going on in the heavens. Demons, angels, the sound of swords clashing.
Wow.
This, something out of like a Frank Peretti novel, if you remember that. If you're familiar with that guy, but late '80s, early '90s. But I'm also on the ground watching fire and storms come up around the confines, the contours of the United States of America. I'm seeing little fires starting all throughout the country in specific spots. And I realize that's the fire of revival, but there's also fires of contention and persecution, opposition. And then I'm realizing that there's spiritual warfare, unprecedented spiritual warfare going on. I see people that are praying that are bruised. I see people that are kneeling. I see people that are having to go down the ground, almost prostrate because they're so tired and exhausted. I see people helping others up to pray. I mean, I'm just seeing the battle, the darkness, the clouds, the fire, the storms are just getting harder and harder and harder. The intensity in heaven is getting more and more intense. And so all these incredible things are happening. People are getting tired. People are just leaning down. And finally, it's like the clouds kind of pass. And I realize we prayed all the way to the end of September. People are exhausted, but they're standing up and they're lifting their hands. They're just thankful. They're high-fiving each other. And it was black and white beside each other, men and women, young and old. It was everybody praying together. And then I saw the heavens opened, and Jesus was standing there with angels behind him. And he said, "Arise, my bride, arise, my bride, arise, my bride, and prepare to pray. Arise, my bride, arise, my bride, arise, my bride, and prepare for battle." And then finally, "Arise, my bride, arise, my bride, arise, my bride, for I'm coming soon, and my reward is with me. Prepare to see my face, for I'm coming soon, and my reward is with me." And then it was like there was the sound of 1,000 shofars going off, and in the dream I could feel the wind. There's no hair to blow on my head, but I could feel the wind of these shofars just blowing. And suddenly I woke up, and it was this incredible, peaceful feeling I've ever had. It wasn't the 180 heartbeats on my Fitbit. It was just peace. And because calling not just for one day in September, but for the church to pray, because persecutions, he said, prepare to pray. In other words, whatever our prayer life is right now needs to be ramped up 100-fold. It needs to be better. It needs to be stronger. Our time in the Word, our devotional life needs to be better, because whatever's going to happen, whatever's coming. And he said, prepare for prayer, prepare to pray, and prepare for battle. So there's something specifically about September that's coming that the church has to get ready for. And he also said, prepare to see my face. And I had a lot of folks say, well, does that mean the rapture happens in October 1st and all these things? I'm a pre-trib rapture believer. I don't know where the tribulation fits into what I saw. I don't believe that we're going to just get by without any opposition before he comes at all. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the most important thing is that we need to be ready for Jesus whenever he comes.
And I think it's really awesome that, let's say, I doubt that you are wrong, but if somehow, let's say, it becomes where it doesn't happen, what you taught everyone is to be faithful more, to have faith, and to pray more, and to love God more. And I think that's what it's kind of like. So even if they're like, oh, nothing happened, well, the good that came out of it is that you got on your knees and you prayed, maybe for your first time, and you loved Jesus, and you just kind of you came together with him.
Maybe nothing much happened because of the prayer.
Yeah, maybe that's what he.
But I definitely believe we'll see something.
Yeah, no, I believe it too, because
there's definitely going to be something going on, and I think I'm compelled to say this, that in September there's also the trials of Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And the pedophiles are going to be revealed, and there's a lot that's going to be revealed.
There is great potential for a lot to be revealed.
Yep.
So I think the most important thing is to just pray for discernment, and definitely pray and
yeah.
I don't know what one can say to those who don't believe, but all you got to do is just hold on.
And getting back to the brace yourself, I was just thinking as you were mentioning that we it could be possibly brace yourself for the big earthquake, possibly. That's another thing that I was thinking while you were saying that, brace yourself, because when something like that happens, then
there's a shaking.
Shaking.
Something can shake the
yeah,
heavens,
maybe
the
something
earth.
into that. effect.
That's a possibility as well.
But you never know.
And in November, after I saw your video, I think it was weeks later, scientists came out saying that a comet will come close to Earth in November. And I thought, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I've heard that about 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You have, and after you made your
After
video,
I made
right?
the statement, I've had people just in the last couple of weeks that will send me information this is about the coins or anything else related to the dreams I had. I'm hearing from somebody somewhere. Did you hear this? Did you see this? Did you,
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard about the comet. I've heard about the empty White House and those sort of things and what that could mean. And
The
everything.
empty White House?
I saw a leaderless Washington, D.C., an empty White House. And so people are trying to figure out, well, did Trump win, did Trump lose? I've had a lot of folks want to know, well, who did I vote for, and what do I think? And no matter who wins in November, President Trump will be president until January. There's an inauguration day. It's been that way for
Right.
over 200 years.
Yeah.
But I saw things that basically the White House was empty. And I saw things that basically meant that there was no one in charge. It was a leaderless Washington. What does that mean? What does that look like? And so everybody's got some opinion. Everybody's got some idea about, well, I think this means that. And I've heard every potential possibility you can imagine. I know who the Antichrist is now. Specifically, I've been told who it is about 150 times. So,
It's Obama. No,
I won't say it on this interview, but
I'm
I've been given about 75 different names of people and leaders. It's just funny, and I also realize that how dogmatic some people are about their position. Because I've had folks go, I like your dream, but are you King James only? Okay, well that tells me what your thoughts are, your background, or well, here's the seals that are opening with your dream. And I mean, I've heard all sorts of, I've heard crazy things, I've heard sound things, I've heard things I think, man, I think this person needs to get some counsel,
right,
some help, because this is not in the Bible. But I have people who are so gentle and kind just to say, Pat, this is what I think is going to happen, and here's how this plays, and what you saw in the scene in your dream, this is what that means. Mm-hmm. I'm a pastor that had a dream. Mm-hmm. I pastored a church of 80 people in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky, and God gave me a dream to wake people up. Mm-hmm. And I made some suggestions about preparation and things like that, which I believe were important. It wasn't based on fear, but I don't know exactly what's coming, but I know something big is coming, and it resonated with thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And so I want this church to get ready. I want people to get their spiritual walk with the Lord where it needs to be. I want people to, be light and salt for the Lord, and give the world an opportunity to see what the church really should look like and how beautiful that bride should be. And that's another thing about that last dream, one of the last dreams I had. He said, "Arise, my bride." He was talking to the church. He was saying, get ready. He was saying, these things are coming, but you're going to see my face too. So
that's
what
beautiful
I want the church to hear.
To see his face. I'm looking forward to that as well, in a sense.
Thank you so much, Pastor Dana. Thank you for being here and for sharing everything that you have. I know that I am grateful for it, and these are just very unprecedented times. I don't like saying that because everyone is saying those words, but definitely challenging times. We've never had a type of pandemic like the one we've had now, and certainly there are a lot of chess game pieces at play here. That's definite. But thank you so much, Pastor Dana, and I pray for everyone. Do
you want to end with a prayer? Should we
Sure.
pray?
Would it be okay for you to do the honors? Thank you so much, Pastor.
Lord, I want to thank you that you speak to your people. And for anyone looking for you, seriously trying to find out if you exist, I'm grateful that you reveal yourself. And I pray for those that are lost, that have never encountered you, Jesus, in a personal, private way, I ask that as they seek your face, you'll reveal yourself to them. And Lord, for the believers that are watching this, I ask you to encourage them to confess their sins, to be accountable, to begin to live their lives the way that they need to. Lord, lives that bring you glory and honor. Lord, lives that will turn against the shame and the fear that might be controlling them. I pray for strength. I pray for Christian marriages. I pray for pastors. I pray for people who are about to be hit with some things that they've never experienced before or thought would happen. I pray, God, you strengthen the church in powerful ways, because we need to be your example and your witness. The world is watching us. Mm-hmm. The world's watching who we are, how we live, how we talk, how we treat our wives and our kids, how we listen, how we serve. So, Lord, help us to shine for you, because we know that one day soon you will be coming back. And you're coming back for your bride. So help us to stay ready and give you glory and honor in everything we say and do until you come. And I pray this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Wow, I felt so much peace with that.
Yeah,
I have to
that was
tell
beautiful.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I know it can be a little overwhelming. I know it can be, but it's necessary, and the emotion is real. The emotion is real, and that's where God is, because God is truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. As uncomfortable as it may feel sometimes, the breakdown always leads to the breakthrough. Yes. And that's why we got to be strong, and that's why we have to brace ourselves, as you say.
And that's why you have to listen to the Strange Chameleon show. I'm just kidding.
That was a joke.
I'm just kidding.
We really do hope that you listen to this wonderful interview.
Yes.
Even if you don't listen to any other interview of ours.
This is very important. Please listen.
The important one. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.